Hello gamers, this is Seb, and this video will be a response to a viewer called Fell Voice who commented on the Cynic video. He said, please do a video on how to do a Star Wars game using GURPS where unarmored characters don't get one shot. Thanks. So I did not prepare this video so much since I've ran at least 3 campaigns of Star Wars using GURPS, and this is dating back to the middle of the 90s. You see in 3rd edition, characters dodge and parry were a bit lower than the 4th edition ones. And there was this document online in the early internet, a document written by David Pulver about this topic, making characters for a cinematic space opera like Star Wars. And the first thing he suggested was adding 3 points to every passive defense and every active defense of the character. So a character were routinely, averagely having a dodge of 5 in 3rd edition, and now it went to 8. And strangely enough, and coincidentally enough, in 4th edition, this +3 made its way in 4th edition as a standard practice. So the first thing you could do in a Star Wars game is to allow your player to the full benefit of that +3 in 4th edition, but also access to a more free access to advantage such as enhanced dodge, enhanced defense, and maybe remove the cap on these advantage. So that could make your character, the counterpart of that is making your character untouchable, which is a concern. You want to create, you want your character to be able to sling their way in a typical Star Wars fashion. But also, apart from making the character tougher, making them maybe buy more hit points, buy levels of damage resistance, luck is a big one. Make your character have at least the basic luck, giving the player a reroll per hour, per game hour, and make it accessible. Maybe give them a charge a point. So first thing, you could make the character tougher and more agile and raising character points. The other part of that is using optional rules. And GURPS has many optional rules in the basic set, which are quite synchronous with one another. For example, here is my old 2011 campaign document for Star Wars, and I'm using all sorts of crazy cinematic rules to make the experience feel like Star Wars. The first one I would say is the Imperial Stormtrooper Marksmanship Academy rule. That is a big one. If if there is a combat, basically minions, unnamed minions always miss on the first turn. So that gives your players a chance to not get surprised or to get the drop on a couple of low level, low threat minions from the get-go. Then everything like a cinematic explosion, cannon fodder. Cannon fodder should always miss their defense roll They never use all-out attack. If they take just 1 point of damage that bypass their armor, they fall down. They're dead or they're unconscious. Cinematic explosion only wrecks equipment. It doesn't. It just knocks people out on their ass, but explosion don't kill people in Star Wars. Then you have flesh wound. Characters can spend one unspent point to reduce the damage they received. Shaking it off. A character spend 1 fatigue point to succeed at an HT roll that missed, or to stay up while a knockdown is occurring. Also, you see, I even use cinematic luck in an add-on, complete add-on. Characters spend fatigue point or unspent point to re-roll dice. This type of mechanic, though, you need to have like reserve a pool of unspent character points for the players and ask them to keep that pool of unspent point at a reasonable level. Also, what else? Character could use the force, as you can see here. I use the force point mechanic of the Western game Star Wars system in my campaigns, my GURPS campaign. It worked pretty good. People who are not force sensitive could only gain 2, I believe, and force sensitive had an unlimited amount of force point they could earn. And using a force point double your attribute, skill, power by 50% difference, but everything else is had a massive bonus for 1 single instant. Then I use the dark side rule. Yeah, pretty much the same thing as in Star Wars, Western game Star Wars. So let me check the question again. Please do a video on how to do a Star Wars game using GURPS while unarmored character don't get shot. Yeah, pretty much you raise the defense to a good level. In the basic set, you have a little tiny table that tell you the odds on 3d6. You can balance things out by looking at this table and make sure that your player character's defense, especially dodge, is risen to an acceptable limit or threshold that you fix for yourself. Maybe you could give everyone the same amount of dodge and fix the number right there. And if one PC by combat reflexes, maybe rise this number by 1. Yeah, that's pretty much it. And also make push the player to buy more hit points, because in third edition the hit points were HT based, so the threshold for dying, being unconscious, everything was based on HT. But now hit points is based on hit points. So if you have a character with 10 HT, but you give him like crazy amounts of hit points, like 30 hit points, this character will roll his first roll to survive death at minus 30. That's 60 points of damage. Now, hit point is a very important thing, and it's dirt cheap. It's really cheap. You can buff up characters by just buying a good amount of hit points, and that will tough them up like crazy pretty quick. And if you still don't want to use armor, you could still buy damage resistance and allow the character to process it as natural toughness or just a way of evading harm. GURPS is an effect-based game, you know. So even if you buy damage resistance, it can mean a lot of things. It's not just armor. So you could just rename that vitality like in the old D20 Star Wars system, or find it another name like toughness and just give him a level. So yeah, those are my first thoughts about Star Wars and making characters tougher. You see, the last two time, if I'm checking my archive here, I've run a campaign in 2011 called Star Wars Legacy, which happened in this Legacy era from a Dark Horse comic. And then prior to that, Trader's Adventure, like 5 years earlier. And those two campaigns were 10 sessions each, so 20 sessions of Star Wars. And in the past, I've ran also like a solo session, a mini campaign for one player, which was more of the adventure of a swoop racer. And yeah, and all in more than 30 sessions of combat and Star Wars, I had just one character death. So it's also on your shoulder as the GM to make things Star Wars and to be forgiving and to pay respect to the genre and to pay homage to your best Star Wars moment and scenario. So thanks for watching. See you next time. Bye.